Today I'm going to show you a glitch that I found that I think embodies the spirit of Season of Discovery. I really hope Blizzard doesn't fix it unless some sort of exploit comes out of it. This is the most fun I've had playing WoW since the early days of Wall Jumping to Hydro and Caverns of Times in Vanilla.
Dude, wait, what is it with these gnome players and having that intro with their little gnome flexing and dancing? Okay, let's check this out.
That being said, like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. As a mage in Season of Discovery Phase 3, we got a new rune called Displacement. The way this rune works is for 10 seconds after you blink, you can cast Displacement and return to the original location that you blinked.
Oh, I was wondering how mages
realistically records your X, Y, and Z coordinates, and then it places you back at them. What would happen if you say did this in a new instance, one that wasn't the same as where those coordinates were originally recorded? Well, I'm here to tell you that it indeed does teleport you to those coordinates, but inside of the new instance. As you can see, when I do this technique from within stockades, I get sent to Alteric Mountains. This seems to be the go-to location when you go from inside of an instance to Eastern Kingdoms. So what would happen if you went from an instance to Calibur? Well, you usually end up in Stone Talon Mountains. That seems to be the go-to place. There have been a couple times when I ended up in Thunderbluff, and I think the issue with that is because it actually teleports you under the map, so the game tries to figure out where the closest graveyard is.
Okay, it makes a lot more sense the way he explains it, actually.
This is the part of the video where things get interesting. Technically speaking, Eastern Kingdoms and Calibur are both their own instances. So what happens if you travel between the two? Well, greatness. That's what. You can consistently and reliably make a map that shows you exactly where you will travel between the two, minus Z location, unless someone takes the time to make that. The easiest way to create this map is to screenshot your location when zoomed out on one continent, use the technique to the other continent, and then screenshot your location again. Overlapping these two screenshots with your area aligned will give you the map you're looking for. So how do we use this? Highlight the area you want to visit on whatever map has the location, and then hide the map. You'll now need to position yourself somewhere inside the mark on the other map. So let's try.
Oh, what? That's actually crazy.
This theory by visiting behind the gates of AQ. You'll see that I'm teleported right behind the gates of AQ, and I'm free to explore. This is huge. You can pinpoint any location in the game and get there with little to no barrier to entry, literally.
Yeah, so he goes where he wants to go in Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, and then he teleports. That's crazy. What? Mages are literally bending time and space? That's actually insane. Yeah, I think this is so cool.
So many things that can be done with this. For instance, here I am swimming through fatigue and surviving all the way to the wall that you get stuck in. The way I do this is pretty simple. Swim until fatigue is close to being gone, teleport out, wait for fatigue to fill up, and displace back. I was doing this to try to reach GM Island, but I did hit an invisible wall, so I'm not 100% sure that it's possible. If you take this technique and build on it or find something really interesting, let me know in the comments below and I'll check it out. I'll be making a follow-up video with some realistic approaches to what you'd use this for, such as teleporting directly to the DMF buff in Malgor. So
yeah, so the XYZ are recorded, but the continent is not.
So keep an eye out for that. And as always, stay curious.
Damn, what an awesome... Okay, this video really explained it a lot more in depth than the other one. It's always mages that can do some not-so shit, I know!
Hey guys, Cal Torak here. Today, I want to show you one of my favorite things I've done in Season of Discovery.
Okay.
This game and its community never ceases to amaze me with the incredible things they can do. A massive shout out to Tess in the Mage Discord. They're the one who showed me this incredible technique and broke down all the details for me. Also showed me several great teleport locations to use. Tess has a YouTube channel, though content isn't their focus. I still want to give them a shout out, so it'll be linked down below. Before I explain the in-depth details of how this tech works, I just want to show you the absurdity of it. As an Alliance player, zone into the Deep Run Tram. We blink and then zone out. Then cast Displacement. This will teleport us to Silver Pine Forest. Yes, Silver Pine Forest.
Wait, how did people figure this out? What?
We then run straight east. I like to point at this tower here. I swim to the coordinates 27.7, 59.9 roughly. We then cast Teleport to Darnassus. As the teleport is going off, we spam blink. You should be able to blink as the teleport is going off. Once we are in Darnassus, you then use Displacement. Now, we are at the purple side entrance to Mara.
What? How do you even figure that out? I wish I had a mage so I could log in and test this, but...
That's right, boys. For Alliance mages, we no longer need to have a Hearth in Desolace. we can very quickly get to Mara in less than 2 minutes from Stormwind. How the hell?
Yeah, I was looking at the time in the top right, because maybe he like did some editing and stuff like that, but it looks, yeah.
Is this possible?
It looks...
The way Tess explained it to me is the following. If you blink in the game, it stores your X, Y, and Z coordinates, but not the map ID.
Okay.
If you encounter a loading screen, the map ID changes. However, displacement doesn't care, and simply transports you back to the stored coordinates.
What?
Tess made a macro that will show you the raw chords in game. I'll have it linked in the description below. Using this technique of storing XYZ coordinates, and in the macro that would show you your current chords in game, Tess was able to find cute little spots to do some pretty incredible things. Are you an Alliance mage that needs Darkmoon Fair, but it's in Mulgore?
No!
Let's do the same thing
No.
from Iron.
What's up, Mala?
Enter the tram, blink,
wait, so you... Okay,
and
so
then
you...
zone out to Ironforge. Use displacement, and this will put you at the AV portal. We then run to Hillsgrad Foothills to this coordinate here.
What? That's so... Dude, I don't even know what to say. Dude, mages already have teleports to every major city. Now they can teleport to literally every single zone in the world.
We do the exact same thing. Teleport to Darnassus and blink as it goes off. When you cast displacement, you will spawn at the graveyard outside Thunderbluff. It's a short walk to the Darkmoon Fair.
What?
How about a quick route to ZF? Fly to Loch Modan from Ironforge and run to this location at Blasted Lands. We do the same technique here. We cast Darnassus portal, and then we blink as it goes off. Once you cast displacement, guess what? You are just south of the entrance to ZF. Just make sure you blink before you hit the ground.
That is so crazy.
What about the gates of AQ? Head over to this spot in Stormwind and run up to these barrels.
Oh, yes.
Climb the wall like this. Run forward until you fall and go under Stormwind. We run west to the water here.
Spaghetti code? Yeah, like, I don't even... Dude, the fact that people figure stuff out like this is crazy. Like, what? Supported by in-game lore, mages are magical.
Swim to these coordinates. Same tech as before. Teleport to Darnassus, blink, and displacement. You'll fall in DC, but when you log back in, you're at the gates of AQ.
Okay.
Tess showed me they found a spot in Unguro that teleports you to the portal in Molten Core. So I set out to find a spot we could get to Unguro quickly from. After some trial and error, I was able to find this location. Run to the King's Chamber in Stormwind and run past Anduin here.
I don't even know.
Tele to Darnassus and do the blink trick. This will put you on the edge of Silithus. Run east until you hit this wall and slow fall into Unguro.
What? Didn't work for me in the one I've been more hotfixed already. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a mage to test this, but this is crazy. People figure out the most I don't even know what to say. They just figure out the most insane
Run to these coordinates
things.
Here. When teleporting, we gotta go to Stormwind this time. Same
lore
technique.
accurate mage.
After you displacement, you are at the portal to Molten Core.
Okay.
Dire Maul, anyone? Get on the boat to Menethil to Theramore. As it's leaving, you will portal to Darn. You have to teleport before the load screen.
I'll show that after
do
I'm
the displacement trick, and yeah, Dire Maul. Now, we never know how Blizzard's going to react to something like this.
Yeah.
My assumption is it's going to get patched out very quickly.
Probably.
But you never know how severe the reaction is going to be.
I just think it's cool, man. Okay, like people can figure stuff out like
Do
this.
this at your own risk. I seriously doubt anyone's going to get banned for doing this, but you've been warned. Seriously though, this was the most fun I've had in Phase 3 running around doing this.
Yeah.
I'm curious of all the fun locations people will find before it gets fixed. I hope Horde have a lot of cool places to do this, but yeah, I only know the Alliance spots.
Okay.
A lot of my enjoyment for Phase 1 and Phase 2 was, shockingly, the discovery of all the ways we could break the game with runes.
I can see that being fun.
A large thing for me was the discovery of new AoE farms and dungeon farms using our runes, pushing mages to the absolute limit.
It was crazy seeing mages doing those wailing caverns, like...
With the addition of the run speed increase and slow immunity that dungeon mobs have, it's essentially killed AoE dungeon farming.
Yeah.
All our old farms for 50 dungeons are disgustingly hard, if not impossible. And definitely not worth it anymore.
Just do incursions.
I've enjoyed this, though, even though I assume it'll be patched. It was a lot of fun. It's really cool seeing the creativity of the WoW community. I seriously love this kind of stuff.
Yep.
One final shout out to the Mage Discord and Tess for all of this info.
Shout out to Tess.
I now stream every Monday through Friday, starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be live on both YouTube and Twitch, so come hang out. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe.
I'll link it there, chat.
And see you in the next one, fam.
Check out Kaltarak, guys. Check him out. The hidden lore of Season of Discovery.
Season of Discovery, there's lots of new content, but with it, they've also introduced new lore within the classic WoW universe, along with mysterious implications and call forwards to lore that will occur in the future events of Warcraft. Now, I won't be going over every new tidbit of lore introduced, but I will be going into the stories that interest me the most. Starting off with murder.
Okay.
Within the desolate fields of Desolus, players can stumble upon a crime scene. Here they find 2 dead humans and a dwarf. Their wounds and the absence of their belongings suggest that this was not done by a wild animal. During their investigation, players question a nearby goblin, Bibbly Futzbuckle,
on this quest.
who explains that this is not the first time this has happened. In fact, it seems the only people targeted in these attacks are humans and dwarves. The attacks only stopped when an Alliance Marshal started investigating the area. Futzbuckle suggests players should travel to a port town to try and catch the people who did this. And when players travel to Booty Bay, there's an orc who explains that she was a mercenary hired to attack those Alliance members in Desolace, and the person that hired her left to go to their secret hideout in Arathi Highlands once the Alliance Marshals started investigating. This hideout is a remote location off the coast, separated from the zone. Players find the culprit, Ilari Duskfeather, and ask if she was the one that killed those Alliance citizens. And she says, yes, and she'd do it again. Players ask, why? You're a night elf, you're also a part of the Alliance. And in response, she goes,
Kalimdor belongs to the Kaldori. I refuse to see it defiled by the lesser races.
Dude, I've said this so many times. Night elves are like the most racist race in World of Warcraft. They literally hate anyone that's not Night Elf. Like, no meme. They literally do.
Our leaders act as if the Alliance and the Horde are so different, but they debase our lands all the same. Do you not see how the dwarves plunder the earth for all that they can? Do you not think the human appetite for expansion will not bring them to the foot of Teldrassil one day? Blades and torches in hand. To think, my people bow to those vermin over a few orcish lumber camps. Pathetic. If our leaders cannot protect us, then I will do what must be done.
Oh shit.
Horde and Alliance players will then be forced to fight Ilari Duskfeather, which can prove to be difficult because of her high level. During the fight, right before she is killed, she vanishes away, leaving a key on the ground that players can pick up to open a chest which contains a rune. But if you're a Night Elf, you have a dialogue option where you can agree with Ilari's viewpoint and she'll just give you the key. And I love this character. You know, I've mentioned in previous videos that there's a distinct disconnect between Night Elves being these prudish, holier-than-thou tree huggers in Warcraft 3. And they're just nice tree huggers in Warcraft. And I feel like this quest does an awesome job at addressing that. And since no matter what option you pick, Ilari survives, I'm sure we'll see her again in the future phases of Season of Discovery.
That's cool. What's this? Oh, the land of the cows.
Hiding in Thunderbluff, there's a newly added NPC, unknown to many players. Concealed in stealth, Borton Shade Totem is a Tauren rogue that tasks players with a quest to sabotage the local Harpies and Ventureco mercenaries in Mulgore. Now, Borton Shade Totem is actually a character introduced in the Dragonflight expansion when rogues became an available class to every playable race in the game.
Dude, listen man, a Tauren rogue, it really doesn't make sense. Alright, like, I'm sorry dude, but they have hooves, man, and they're so big. It does make sense. It really doesn't, man.
There was like a clip of like a cow like sneaking up on a reporter.
There's a difference between being a pirate and being a rogue. A rogue is like, you know, you gotta be stealthy, you gotta be sneaky. You're like a big cow.
Borton Shade Totem is the rogue trainer in Thunderbluff. And the perplexing thing is when players talk to him in Season of Discovery, he says, I speak to you from your future. When the Horde faces threats you cannot imagine. Since others cannot see me, I rely on you to learn my skills and pass them to the tribe. Which I guess indicates that not only is Borton Shade Totem a rogue, but he's also a time traveler that has ventured back to the classic WoW timeline to warn players about the next 9 World of Warcraft expansions. How did he manage to travel back in time? I'm not really sure, but this also isn't the only instance of time-traveling characters within the Season of Discovery.
What else? Hey, what's this? Oh, like for the nips?
During each phase of Season of Discovery, players can craft an epic quality void-touched item. During Phase 1, this involved a long quest line that took players into the Black Fathom Deeps, into a secret area underwater to loot an item simply called the Box.
I think these quest chains for like the gear was so sick. I like new content like this little quest change. I think it's super dope, man. It's nice.
The next part of the quest line involves traveling to a remote area above the Ravenholt Manor in the Hillsbrad foothills, where there's this giant glowing crystal. Here, you destroy the box, and what remains after is a void crystal, and then out of nowhere, a shadowy figure appears. This shadowy figure is of a female high elf, who explains to players that what they hold is a powerful artifact that could be used to their advantage. And
I really love that they used the old model for the high elves. Oh my gosh, I actually didn't even realize that it was the old high elf model.
At first, the player character is apprehensive with the use of such evil. But you can also craft epic quality armor with it, so
that's good.
Who cares? You know what? Curse me with—
what is that? Hold on a second. This little breastplate is kind of— he's showing off the okay, I actually never saw that before. Okay.
Who cares? You know what? Curse me with your void knowledge.
Goddamn.
Now, the speculation amongst the community is that this is Xalatath, a void entity that is going to be one of the main antagonists in the War Within expansion. The reasoning behind this is that it's a void being in the guise of an elf, and she also has a curvy blade.
So the question is, are they gonna like intertwine like retail and SoD now? Like, is this actually gonna be a thing?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But if this is the case, that would mean that she is probably traveling back in time to the events of Classic WoW, because during Classic, her essence was bound within the blade of the Black Empire, which makes sense. You know, time travel and void shenanigans go hand in hand. Now, there is a way that this could be Xalatath during the Classic WoW timeline that doesn't involve time travel, but somehow it's a more—
Doing BFA, we found a void artifact and used its power to possess the corpse of an elf to give Xalatath a corporal form while she is still being bound within the blade of the Black Empire. It's possible this game would have happened in Classic, I guess, but there is no evidence to that. Dude, where would I be in World of Warcraft lore without Platinum WoW? Like, this guy is like a blessing, I swear to God.
Contrived than time travel. And then during Phase 2 of the Season of Discovery, the shadowy figure returns in the next quest line that involves crafting a piece of epic void-touched armor. This quest line involves charging a void core. Players find a void core by killing Nagas on an island in Feralos. But this void core isn't charged with power. In order to charge it, you can't
lame. We only got like 4. I wanted my 5.
Any mobs.
I mean, I could join like another group and then just like leave them
figure will appear
for like one
to
run.
Charge the crystal for the player.
While I'm here,
in return,
I mean,
she expects the player to help her in the future.
And then I need 15 of these for the spell power shield, so I can like do more
and I'm sure that she'll be
damage while tanking.
Future phases of Season of Discovery, and ask a favor from us. A favor which will probably be morally dubious at best.
Yeah. Okay, what do we got next? Oh.
The Deadwind Pass is an obscure zone within Classic WoW. It's a barren wasteland you must venture through to get from Duskwood to the Swamp of Sorrows.
Yeah.
But in Season of Discovery, it's where players travel to begin a worldwide investigation. Near the entrance of one of the zones, there's a Dalaran agent who explains that there's been a heist of the city of Dalaran's artifacts. Somehow, some way, they were able to sneak past the giant magical bubble protecting the city to do this. The Dalaran scryers detected the presence of 7 hooded figures on a horseback, matching the legend of the Dark Riders of Karazhan. Players are given a trinket, Arden's Sigil, in order to detect their dark presence and hunt them down.
This is really cool, man. Like, these random little like quest chains. I know some people find them really tedious, but I like them, and I guess there's some lore to it too, right?
The legend of the Dark Riders is a tragic one. Long ago, a group of charlatan merchants, led by a man named Arden, settled in Deadwind Pass.
Really?
And these swindling salesmen approached the Tower of Karazhan, where Medivh, the Guardian, and the most powerful mage in Azeroth lived. And they tried to convince him to buy these totally fake, not magical artifacts. Little did they know, Medivh had gone mad, possessed by the demonic titan Sargeras, and he cursed these charlatans, turning them into the Dark Riders, and they've haunted Azeroth ever since in search of real, priceless artifacts.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, the Dark Riders have been mentioned in passing ever since Classic WoW.
Wait, really? He flipped before I could catch him, and I couldn't linger for I was hot on the heels of the Dark Riders. Yeah, it's kind of like the Nazguls of Lord of the Rings in a way. Wait, so the lore is actually in vanilla for the Dark Riders as well. That's actually kind of cool. You don't know Sven's story? Not fully, no. I mean, I've done a lot of, whenever I leveled Gussie, I actually did a lot of, like, reading of the quest and stuff like that. But apart from that, from my hardcore, like, journeys in WoW, I've never really read the quests too much, right? It was there all the time, yeah.
But most players probably...
You play Classic for 20 years and don't know any lore? Bro, listen, man, up until, like, I did my hardcore content for like, you know, stream and YouTube and stuff, I literally never read a quest. I literally just open the quest, click accept, go on the map where it tells me to go. Right? But I actually really did enjoy, like, reading through the quest and, like, immersing myself more into the game when I was doing hardcore stuff. It was actually really fun.
Remember them in the Legion expansion, because they play a key role in the artifact weapon questlines for the weapons Apocalypse, the Scythe of Elune, and Euthalesh. But in Season of Discovery, Arden's Sigil helps players track down each of these riders, and they might need some help from other players to kill them because of their elite status.
Yeah,
you'll have to travel to Deadwind Pass, the Swamp of Sorrows, Duskwood, Badlands, Arathi Highlands, the Barrens, and Desolate.
It's a lot of places.
So it's a very travel-intensive process.
Yeah.
But when players return to the Dalaran Agent, they will be rewarded with one of their class rings.
Very nice.
And probably really sore feet. And this quest is just yet another sprinkle of lore to experience.
Yep.
But it isn't the only new content that involves a ridiculous amount of walking.
Okay. Is it the sleeping bag?
The sleeping bag questline is
it.
a newly added piece of content that rewards players with, well, a sleeping bag that gives you an XP bonus.
Cool quest.
I'm sure if you've played Season of Discovery, you've done it before, but hey, let's be honest. Did you actually read the quest text?
Season of Wowhead. Let's be honest, chat. I mean, that's what most people goddamn did, okay? I will just say, though, actually, I haven't looked up any of the data mine content of, like, Phase 3 so far, okay? We've actually avoided it, alright? Apart from the video that Blizzard, like, released on their YouTube channel, I haven't been looking stuff up.
No, of course you didn't.
Sabotaku.
This adventure starts in Westfall, where you find a scene of burnt remnants and a note that says...
Yeah, I did see the Guza reference, but that's because people kind of, like, you know, spammed it in my chat, so I saw it that way. People
Not all that burns is lost. Find the Twin Land. Find place.
Yeah, it's...
That location
that's a really, really big thing for me, man. I think that's so cool.
On the other side of the world, in the Barrens, where we find a similar scene of burnt remains.
Yeah.
Here, another note reads, the mission said they were both making deliveries for new plague. Looks like simple apothecary accidents to me. Find my cozy spot in the mountains between the Barrens and Desolus if you want a safe place to talk.
Yep.
This new plague is a chemical gas that the Undead Apothecary Society was concocting that is most well known for being used in the Wrathgate cinematic in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. But really, the Undead loved using this stuff for the whole expansion.
I don't know.
But also this new plague was mentioned in multiple quests in Classic WoW. Like in the Hillsbrad Foothills, where you help a member of the Royal Apothecary
yeah, that's where you kill the little toad and you kill the dog as well.
Society, who says, and I quote, I look out my grimy window and long for the days our new plague brings this world the death it deserves.
Dude, what the
and
hell?
Then you force feed it to a dog and kill it. Yep. God, I just love when Forsaken are so comically edgy and evil. Okay, sorry, I got distracted there. So, when you're doing the Sleeping Bag quest, you travel from the Stone Talon Mountains to the Lochmadan Dam, and then there's another note stating that the rider is loyal to the Eagle in Fist, which is the symbol of the Kingdom of Stromgarde. You get more hints that lead you to Thoradin's Wall, and there is another note that states that this mysterious rider must take his work back underground, so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And at this little base camp, players get their sleeping bag.
Ah, comfy!
And that's the end of the quest. But keen players will realize that they're being watched.
Yeah, I saw this when we did the quest, man. There is some, like, I don't remember the name, like, there's some people watching you, basically.
Look at one of the sections of Thoradin's wall, and you'll spot two secret agents spying on you. And one is tagged as a beast, and they're also level 77, so maybe they're part...
It's the furries. It's the goddamn furries, man.
Part of the SI-7 agents from Stormwind? But wait, it gets weirder. These secret agents are all around Azeroth, spying on the player from afar. As far
as this I didn't know, actually. What?
As I know, there are 4 different locations. There's one here at Thoradin's Wall,
wait, really?
Another on a seemingly random island in the Swamp of Sorrows, another by the Dustwella Marsh Inn, and also on a pillar overlooking the Old Man Cave entrance.
I only knew about the one in at the sleeping bag quest.
And when you approach any of them, they just say, "We've got friends," and then they just disappear. Like, what? Who the fuck are these guys? Are they just an Easter egg, a clue to a hidden secret in the Season of Discovery yet to be discovered? Well, I've got a theory. Perhaps, maybe, just maybe, these characters are added by Blizzard in order to integrate the Men in Black franchise into the Warcraft universe. That's right, just hear me out. Will Smith and those wacky aliens are now canon. I mean, it just perfectly fits within the season too. These secret agents will use their mind-wiping device called a neuralizer to wipe our Season of Discovery characters' minds so they unlearn all of the runes, and then they can be integrated back.
But I'm not gonna unlearn that I fucking got these badass fucking sunglasses.
The abilities that they learned during the Season of Discovery. It's such a crazy idea that it might
actually no, I would have the sunglasses and it wouldn't work on me. Like Men in Black logic, they have sunglasses so they don't
honestly, that could work,
erase their own minds.
Everybody keeps asking always, like, what's gonna happen to our characters once Season of Discovery is done? Yeah, man, the Men in Black comes out and they flash your eyes, and then you go to the Arrow servers, and then they make Classic Plus with all the information gathered throughout Season of Discovery. Yeah. Damn. Dude, what a cool video, though. I like that a lot. What other new Bobbits and lore would you have to meet cover next? I think it's just fun seeing Platinum while going over this stuff, because, like, I mean, I know some of it, but, like, he explains it in such a nice way that's so digestible, man. To be fair, I would defend my land.
It's the Burning Crusade. Specifically, it's March 2008. We're about to see a giant fall, a phoenix rise from the ashes, and then burn out just as quickly as it appeared. My name is Preach, and we are going to be looking at the birth and death of WoW's first super guilds. On the 5th of June 2007, WoW juggernaut Nihilum brought down Illidan Stormrage in another spectacular and expected world first. Blizzard then announced the war was not over. Kil'jaeden was coming and the battle for the TBC top guild was still up for grabs. At this point in our story, we have 3 top contenders. The champions, of course, Nihilum, the guild that came so close, Death and Taxes, and now an ever-present but rising star, the guild known as Curse.
You are not prepared.
Then a twist. For the first time, a WoW guild becomes fully sponsored by an esports organization. In early 2008, Curse becomes SK Gaming. This is a huge moment in history. Before this, money in WoW raiding was limited to headset and mouse deals like Nihilum was with mouse sports. But now investors were seeing the potential profits to be made on the race to world firsts. Just like we are with our community-made mousepad, which is available now. This was drawn by our community over the subathon. We are not making money on this. We're selling this at pretty much cost. So if you want one of these and you like our stuff, it has something like 160 references to all the games and even a little tribute to Bendog on there. So check the link below. In Nihilum, things were becoming dire. In the words of the ex-members that we spoke to, the guild was eroding internally. The old guard was burnt out and leaving. But why? They just got the world first. Let's think back.
I'm not about to fucking wait like fucking 20 minutes for that guy to fucking like run there manually. He doesn't even have the fucking flight path. Like, fuck that shit. No, I'm going to a different group. Fuck that.
It came with tiers 4 and 5. The important dates here, though, are on the 22nd of May, Blizzard released the Black Temple, tier 6. Kael'thas Sunstrider did not die, world first, until the 25th of May, 3 days after it came out. That meant, if you do the math, Nihilum had been pushing world first raiding non-stop for 5 months. Things get sketchy from here, as it always does when guilds begin to collapse. Externally, they had another world first, and the community saw them as untouchable. Internally, though, many problems were surfacing. Players were leaving, they were burning out. At this time, Kungan was regularly disappearing after raid progress. His celebrity status was just rising and rising, and as such he was attending more live events, becoming more focused financially for himself and for the guild. Some members didn't care about this. Yes, he was the main tank, but they're Nihilum. Other players were easily able to step into that role during simple farm raids. However, some saw the lack of a leader regularly being around as enhancing and double downing the cliques that we talked about in our previous video. There were many up-and-coming players who wanted to be part of the World First Guild. But as member Buzzkill recounts in his blog at the time, the guild was a shadow of its former self. And they had the worst tanks in the history of World of Warcraft. It's needless to say, the roster heading into the Sunwell was very weak. At the same time as all that, Death and Taxes closed its doors. About 2 months before their official goodbye post, they had become the target of the WoW community. Why? Well, a post had appeared on the front page of their website, a lengthy post, involving lots of relationship drama within the guild, including some very NSFW content about some of its members. Now, obviously, we can't show that in this video, but here's the Emperor of Man to distract you from that. They tried to remove it very quickly, but the internet is the internet. And once it's out there, it's copied, duplicated, and saved for all time. In their official post, they laid the blame at running out of steam, people not being interested anymore, the usual things you would expect. But needless to say, the once mighty challenger that had come so close, so many times, was just one of the first dominoes to fall of the WoW Super Guilds. With Nihilum struggling to field a roster worthy of their name, SK Gaming were riding a high. Mech and Maxter, the leadership, were out to prove they were worthy of their newfound esports authenticity. And so the door was wide open. Blizzard then screwed it up. The gaming development world was becoming increasingly concerned with the amount of time players were spending in their games. The Burning Crusade was wildly successful, but as we mentioned, players had been grinding endlessly for months and months by now, and the mainstream media was starting to take notice. As such, Blizzard decided they would help players by restricting their access to the new Sunwell raid. This time, the raid would be divided into chunks and bosses would release in a staggered state. Once you had killed the available bosses, the world first race would come to a dead stop until the next bosses were released the following reset. The whole situation threw the raid scene into chaos. You were only winning up to a point, and then the competition had days, maybe even a full week, to catch up and be right back at even footing. Nihilum, of course, felt this the worst. They simply couldn't invest and raid like they were used to and wanted to. It is universally agreed that their only world first there, the Eredar twins, was an absolute fluke. After a progress raid, Kungan asked a few members to stick around so he could science the boss's threat table because it was confusing. In doing so, he saw a strat to kill the boss, and so the very next day, they did. It was so surprising to the rest of the guilds working on this boss that it led to absolute crazy theories of Nihilum standing on the light poles in the room to bypass all the mechanics. You can learn more about that in our Crazy WoW Theories video linked below. Muru was the death knell for Nihilum. In the words of one of the members, Buzzkill, "We failed badly. In the most frustrating stint of progress I've ever been at. We had to suffer through people I hated the most in the world doing the most important roles. We suffered through incompetence of certain individuals that shouldn't even get to see farm." Starim, another player, who was absent at the time but still a member of Nihilum, he went on to say this: "The core of the guild eroded, and new recruits weren't there long enough to really be Nihilum. It was just a collection of people who kind of knew each other, who were just trying to hold on to that #1 spot." At this point, betrayal. Neg, long-time Resto Shaman of Nihilum, suddenly appears in SK Gaming. He saw the writing on the wall for the world champs and he defected to the other side. And it worked. SK Gaming picked up both Muru and Kil'jaeden world first, dethroning Nihilum for the first time since Kel'Thuzad in Vanilla. This should have been the rise of a new champion, but that's not to be the case. Similar to Nihilum, there are conflicting reports from members of SK Gaming of what happened next. Firstly, they're dropped by SK Gaming. SK's official statement on the matter was that PvE wasn't for them, and instead they would focus all their efforts into PvP esports. Some believed that it was just a mutual decision. Others believe SK Gaming was an org and was very disappointed in how Blizzard was running the race to world first with the staggered bosses, and without a proper race, there was just no money to be made. But that seems untrue from what we can find. Some suggest to us that despite claiming the world first, many members were dragged along into the super hardcore progress mindset and certainly didn't want to do this long term or see a career out of it, especially with no tangible return on the time investment. Remember though, this is still in the days before full-time gamers, so they were actively disrupting their own real lives to day raid and take part in the race. However, now is the downtime. Kil'jaeden fell on the 25th of May 2008, exactly 12 months after Kael'thas had fallen. Wrath of the Lich King is not scheduled to launch until November of the same year. This meant that there was 6 months of zero raid progress for these guilds. Behind the scenes, there was more happening than could be predicted. Suddenly, a website appeared and began circulating amongst the community that just read 25th November. This was to be a few days after Wrath of the Lich King launch. More details followed in the form of a press release. It was so professional, so sanitized. Since when do guilds do press releases? The important point was that SK Gaming and Nihilum, former rivals and champions, were merging together. They were forming the first Super Guild. Obviously, the community went wild with this news, but how? How did it come about for these players? In an interview with Mech, we got some more details. SK Gaming was interested only in PvP, not PvE, and the guild wasn't interested in changing. But their investors behind it were interested in something new, something that would be a new brand, a new web presence, and the pitch was this. Currently, the World of Warcraft PvE community is split in two, similar to as it is today. We have Liquid and we have Echo. Back then, SK Gaming, Nihilum. What if we could bring those two together? What we could do then is create a one-stop shop for all fans of high-end raiding to visit. And then we could bring in other guilds. We could have articles, guides. It would be the only place you would visit for good PvE information. And in turn, that means money. Guild mergers typically mean one thing: death for one of the guilds. The players knew this. Power vacuums are created when new leadership forms, and you'll notice that the guild leaders of 25th November were 2 members of SK, Mech and Maxter, but 1 from Nihilum's side. Just Kungan. Speaking to the members of Nihilum, they desperately wanted 2 Nihilum members in leadership. As discussed, Kungen's motivations in some players' eyes were shifting. He was becoming a star, increasingly absent from the day-to-day of the guild, and now a more formal, business-motivated future was looming. But who could that second representative be? In Nihilum's eyes, there was only one man for the job: Close. He was there from the early days, he was a figurehead of many players, he was trustworthy, and he took no nonsense. There was one problem though. After interviewing Close about this, he simply didn't see a way that he could be in leadership and it not be just Kungen's guild. That he wouldn't have the influence that the people were hoping would take place, because that's just not how Nihilum was run. He didn't want the job, and no one else did either. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of how this is going to work. It's over 60 players total between the two guilds. Who joins? Who gets to play? It was discussed that each guild was given the power to veto one of the players from each guild they didn't want for whatever reason they wanted, no questions asked. SK vetoed one of Nihilum's best shamans, Anise. No details on why from anybody. Nihilum vetoed Tigor, the SK warrior, but they also had a special request. Neg. Poor Neg, who could never have ever foreseen these events coming. The betrayer, who had jumped from Nihilum to SK for the world first. Of course, the Nihilum players really did not want to see his face again, and so as a special exception, he got the boot. The very first actions of this guild upset a lot of people. 25th November leveled and completed all of the Wrath of the Lich King raids in 3 days. The news swept across the player base like a tidal wave. It started rampant reports that Wrath of the Lich King had been made easy mode, which wasn't exactly true, but it certainly appeared that way at first. This was the best result that 25th November could have hoped for. They were the talk of the town, and no one else was even close. 20 days later, the date finally arrived, 25th November. Ensidia had arrived. Their announcement, though, was not super well received. A lot of people were salty about what they had done in raiding, and the funding from Dubai made it feel like a greedy move. And there was an arrogance in their comments, as if their dominance over the game was all but assured. So you're probably wondering, how many world firsts did Ensidia get? Well, if we discount the launched normal modes, there were 32 big bosses that came out in the Wrath of the Lich King. Ensidia got 3 of them. Now let's not get too far ahead. It's relatively normal, like it is today, for a lot of guilds to pick up the early bosses of a new raid launch. However, by ICC, Ensidia didn't get a single one. And by the time Halion the Twilight Destroyer was stood in front of those players, Ensidia, World of Warcraft's first super guild, was done. So what happened? Ulduar was their best of the entire expansion. They had to play around all kinds of weird things. They opted to go normal mode in the first reset to get that Yogg normal world first, get their name in lights, and they did. They ignored the heroic mode entirely after early reports from the US said that they were jank and buggy. Their overall goal was Algalon Heroic, which wouldn't be a week 1 kill for anyone, and as far as any player knew, was the official final boss of the raid. This was a big issue though. Some guilds were killing Heroic Hodir week 1. He was way easier. Blizzard then buffed the boss for the following week 2 reset. It turned from an easy one into an unrealistic DPS check. But the guilds who had killed it in that first week got to keep their credit and didn't need to do it again to unlock Algalon. Ensidia did. So the big brains at work discovered they could kite the flowers from Freya's room into the Hodir encounter to spell steal their damage buff. This maneuver became known as flower power, and Ensidia was having to do the extraordinary to maintain their presence, and they more than rose to the occasion. Once again though, this utterly annoyed the community. In their eyes, Ensidia was cheating, and their progress was not legitimate. It's safe to say, though, at this point in time, they were undoubtedly the best players in the world. The issue is these kind of weird moves had to keep happening. Their shining moment was overcoming Mimiron Firefighter, widely considered to be the hardest fight in the raid a full 2 weeks before the world's second. This opened Algalon's doors. Once again, similar to Sunwell, Blizzard tried to be clever, to be different. Algalon was special and would only be available for 1 hour per weekly reset for progress. Which is fine, if the bridge to Algalon's platform actually spawns, which it didn't for Insidia. In total, Insidia got around 40 total minutes of attempts at the boss over 2 weeks. It didn't matter though. They were so far ahead. They claimed that world first. Drinks were had, champagne corks were popped, and they sat back. Cocktails and celebrations all round. That is until you got more information. Wrath of the Lich King was a weird time. You might have gone and killed Algalon, but then we started to hear things about other things, and then we find out that actually Algalon isn't the true last boss. In fact, it's Yogg-Saron on Zero Lights, and if you haven't done that, you're essentially poor. In fact, most of you who have played Wrath of the Lich King might consider yourself a raider, but maybe you're not. Let's do a chart to find out. For example, did you kill Sartharion? No, you're not a raider. You did. No, you didn't. You didn't ask if it's 3 drakes or not. Is it 3 drakes? Yes. Did you do it when it was current? No, you didn't. You're not a raider. Oh, you did. Then you definitely went on to do Immortal and do Glory, right? No, you didn't. Then you're Roger Brown. Back to the raid you go to do a buggy, awkward boss after you have had the rush of finishing progress. In Insidia's own words, no one could be bothered. Stars picked up the world first, and frustration within the guild was growing at an alarming rate. Look, there's a lot to unpack here, so I'm going to be brief. It's not even that dissimilar to what happened to Nihilum in the past, and honestly, it's the same thing that happens to most guilds that break apart. Ego, arguments amongst leadership, a lack of direction, all those things occurred, but combined with that was their celebrity status. They were so popular and streaming didn't exist that thousands upon thousands of people made characters on their realm. That meant that the realm became a laggy, buggy mess. They couldn't even get a full roster of people inside the raid to play. So they decided to server transfer. However, it's not hard to make a new level 1 character on Insidia's new server. So people did. Cliques formed, players were quitting left and right, and the new recruits just weren't welcome, or they simply were not up to the ability level needed. In Trial of the Crusader, they got the Valkyr twins world first. But what they didn't realize was this was to be the last world first they would ever get. Their jaded and bitter attitude was exacerbated by the rise of a new star. A Finnish-only guild named Paragon. In Insidia's eyes, they weren't even surprised that Paragon killed Anubarak before them, given how the guild was functioning internally. But they thought their kill was cheap. Paragon had bypassed the hardest part of the encounter using a stun that didn't seem to have a diminishing return. But the community just didn't care. They cheered. They cheered wildly for this Rocky-style underdog rising to the top, to Insidia's disbelief. Needless to say, a lot of the community were happy to see this titan get dethroned. By Icecrown Citadel, many players had already quit, and worse than that, people were openly declaring that as soon as Arthas's face hit the floor, they were done. They were over it and just wanted it to be done as soon as possible. A big bone of contention amongst the leadership, who was struggling to steer this ship in the right direction, was comms. Mech had come to the conclusion that it was actually going to be reserved for just him, Kungan, and Maxter to talk, and anybody who didn't like comms could mute it in between polls to stop listening to everybody else. Now obviously there was a lot of people who just wanted to talk and have fun while they were raiding, rather than play under some bizarre strict rules. It was at this time Insidia was invited to a Blizzard event in Germany where one of the Insidia players, Tun, openly said King Germans on camera. Insidia was not to be invited to any event again after this half-hearted apology. The Saronite bomb incident has been covered extensively. A 72-hour ban for their main characters certainly didn't help morale, whether you believe it intentional or not. Insidia did just go and re-kill the boss on alt, proving it absolutely wasn't necessary to cheat, but it was another blow to an already fractured guild. As Paragon once again took away the world first, it was doomsday for Insidia. Broken, miserable, and defeated, they limped lightly on, but it was over. The tale we've told you today is one of greatness and tragedy. Ego, lack of clear leadership, overconfidence, all are present in the rise and the fall of WoW's first Super Guild. One thing's for sure, just putting amazing players together does not a great guild make. It takes friendship, it takes a united atmosphere, and it takes a simple, clear goal that all these different personalities can unite behind. Something the Chinese Super Guild Team Asta could have learnt from. But that, of course, is a story for another time. My name's Preach. I hope you've enjoyed this. And if you do want to see more content like this, let us know, and maybe even consider supporting us on our website. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time for another tale of WoW mysteries.
Alright, finally we got our 5 for this hour. I guess probably in the next 30 minutes or something like that I can go back there. It's tempting to get one of those, the bag thing that has like a card in it. I might be able to make some money through that, but I should probably not go with the shield. And then I'll be like done with all the actual items, like equipment that I could use from that place. That vendor. Alright, so, oh wait, I want to try and get into a Gnomer group here, because it actually just reset today, so got another chance at that mint. I mean, I guess in the meantime I can queue for some maybe. Just keep an eye out for looking for a group.
Recently, what is considered to be the best Race to World First event took place. After 5 years of the Race to World First being a live stream event, it came down after 13 days of grueling gameplay to just less than 1% between the two top teams, with Echo Esports managing to clutch out a victory. I was lucky enough to be at the event, and today we're going to look at the epic journey that Echo went on, the ups, the downs, why this event is not only considered to be the best ever, why it's going to be talked about for years to come, and how a game that is celebrating its 19th birthday dominated people's minds and screens, resulting in over 450,000 people watching it all unfold live.
So, that is devastating! $200,000! Echo is racing to the finish line! This is it!
This race began differently from all the rest. One of the most talked about situations around the World First is when you can actually start playing. North America, where the reigning champions Team Liquid play, get their new raid a day earlier than the European-based Echo. This staggered reset timing is something neither guild enjoys, but with Blizzard unwilling to change it so far, it has to be built into both guilds' strategies. For the first time, Echo announced that they were going to raid on the North American servers, which led to massive speculation from the community as to whether they had prepared all their resources for this move. Of course, the reality was that they were going to defeat the far easier normal mode on characters they had made in North America and claim the not so coveted normal mode world first. While this was obviously a publicity stunt, revealing the ending cinematic of the raid live for all to see and get early attention on them, it wasn't only that. The secondary objective was to have a full day head start testing the final boss in its simpler version. The Race to World First guilds used quite an extensive tech team to build add-ons and timers to aid them against the more complex bosses. Farak, the final boss of the raid, is completely untested. Everything the guilds know about it comes from the in-game dungeon journal. This doesn't compare to actually seeing it and testing whether all the tech work is operational. The keen-eyed among you will have noticed that as Echo reached Farak, one of its players swapped out of the group before they engaged the boss. The idea was that Echo would defeat the boss for its viewers, but after that, they could come back as many times as they wanted off-stream to mess around with the boss for testing. Perhaps a sign of things to come, but this went wrong. As the stream went into chill mode until the European reset at 5 AM the following day, Echo went back in to test the boss using the character that left the group and had Farak still alive. Or so it should have been. For whatever reason, it didn't work. Upon re-entering the raid, Farak was dead, which isn't what should happen. For the normal and heroic modes, Blizzard allows players to leave whenever they like and come back to finish the bosses they didn't do. It's a great system for guilds or solo players to not have to commit to doing an entire raid in a single session. Echo's sneaky plan was shambled. Their only solution then was to go to bed and come back early the next day and repeat the process as they still wanted that testing. Preparing for the Race to World First has become so complex that it takes all the guilds across the world months of preparation. Each guild spends thousands of hours preparing literally hundreds of characters amongst its 25 to 28 player roster for the big day. Farming the previous raids on as many alt characters as possible, acquiring every scrap of gear they can to not only make the start of the raid smoother, but also give them as many chances as possible of having one extremely strong character. One thing you can't prepare for, though, is any content that is not available until the new season is released. Typically, the raid releases a week or two after the new season goes live. This patch contains a lot of non-raid content that's for every player of the game to enjoy. Raiders will look deep into this to see if there is any advantage to be gained, and this time, there was. A new reputation system and rewards became available, including a permanent rune giving minor power, although guilds do have access to an endless temporary rune system, providing the same benefit, so it's minor, but also a high-value item upgrade crest that may have given a player an upgrade they wouldn't have otherwise had. So the grinding commenced. However, it was discovered that some of the seeds you needed to interact with to gain the reputation were bugged. Through a process, you can essentially farm them endlessly and far more quickly than intended. Now, Blizzard's policy on these kinds of exploits has been inconsistent over the years, so a decision has to be made by the players to save them many hours of doing it legitimately, or risk the ire of Blizzard by doing it far quicker. On the morning of the launch, Blizzard did in fact take action. They decided to roll back characters that had used the exploit. Rolling back is resetting a character's reputation standing to before they started using the bug and removing the rewards they had earned. When I arrived into Echo's studio in Sweden, the players were essentially sat, waiting to see who would get hit. Now, as Echo had mostly done it legitimately, only 2 of their players were hit, while many others across the world, including Liquid, had been hit. It was a soft hand by Blizzard, but a clear marker. They were watching. And that was a sign of things to come. The tedious process of split runs began, dividing the players into small groups and asking helpers to fill over 60 raids of the easier pre-mythic version to obtain as much gear as possible. And the results of this are staggering. When the team finally is ready to begin the mythic version of the raid, they're usually equipped in gear that would take the average player 6 or more weeks to collect. While this process was ongoing on both sides of the pond, something interesting was happening. The mythic bosses were dying, and dying quickly. Instant Dollars, a top 10 guild in their own right, were crushing the raid. While it's absolutely not uncommon to see the early mythic bosses die before the top guilds even start, it can give you a sign of what's to come. It's always unknown as to how difficult the raid is actually going to be, and it can be very inconsistent. Sepulchre of the first ones took 3 weeks to clear, and is WoW's most difficult raid in history. However, Aberrus the Shadowed Crucible, the previous raid to this one, was cleared in just 4 days. This raid, Amyrdrasil, contains 9 bosses. Instant Dollars claimed 6 of the 9 bosses before either Liquid or Echo had even stepped inside. Now you might think this would panic Liquid and Echo, but they've been here before. They have to stick to their strategy and hope the last bosses are hard. And oh boy, were they. The call is made. It's time for Mythic. With North America having the day head start as is normal, Liquid head in first, and oh man, were they in great shape. In total, Liquid took a total of 17 pulls to match Instant Dollars' days of effort and reach 6 out of 9, and begin staring down the fire giant himself, Smolderon. Coming into this race, Smolderon was one of the bosses predicted to be the first big wall to climb. Not only are his attacks absolutely brutal, but his high HP meant he was a huge DPS check. Blizzard also decided to buff his HP by 13%. Now this is not uncommon to see on the later unkilled bosses once Blizzard has a grasp of just how much damage the guilds are capable of. And without the buff, Smolderon would have been smashed to pieces. However, impressively, Liquid only needed 56 tries to claim Smolderon's life, and in their first real day of progress, had reached the penultimate boss, Tindral Sageswift. The feeling was, this race is going to be a short one. Unfortunately, Liquid ran into a very strange bug, sadly not uncommon for the NA champions, who end up pulling a lot of the harder bosses before anyone else and finding these kinds of problems. Tindral's abilities were causing immense lag, making the encounter unplayable. Thankfully, Blizzard does now maintain close contact with the guilds and got to work fixing it, while Liquid used their time effectively, heading into the 5-man mythic dungeons to collect even more item upgrades. Echo's first day ended roughly the same way, with both guilds being 7 out of 9, and the 1 and 2 spots on the leaderboard being locked in until the death of this race. This is where the reset strategy comes into play. NA does get the patch a day early, but that also means their raid week reset happens earlier. Monday is NA's final day before everything resets and the bosses respawn. Now, of course, this means more loot is available, but it also allows Echo to make some choices as they have all of Tuesday to milk what they can from this first reset. Of course, this can also flip, and the new gear Liquid obtains on their Tuesday reset may allow them to kill the final boss before Echo gets the same gear, but thankfully, that hasn't happened yet in Race to World First history, as it would be disappointing on both sides. Echo always has to start from behind due to this reset. Historically, they tend to win when they can catch up fast and then overtake the competition, and this was their chance. Tindral Sageswift is one of the most amazing fights Blizzard has ever made. Every action the players could have taken to bypass the mechanics or make the fight easier had been taken into account. It was smooth, had unbelievably punishing mechanics, and pushed each guild to the limits of its teamwork. It was also extremely hard. Blizzard made a minor nerf to the boss, but only nerfed a phase neither guild had seen yet, making it irrelevant to the race. Echo's strategy here was simple. On Monday, they didn't need to smash their face into Tindral. Liquid did. If Liquid had any hope of reaching Farak before the reset, Tindral had to die. Echo could allow Liquid to push into Tindral while they went off to the 5-man dungeons to get more gear. They could learn as much as they can about the boss, then use all their Tuesday to kill Tindral and pull the final boss way ahead of Liquid. The stage was set. Liquid did not manage to defeat Tindral before their reset, so Echo was primed to pull ahead for the first time in this race. And then, disaster. Echo's healer Zalia, who was with us in Sweden, got very sick. As in, couldn't get out of bed sick. You might think that someone else could have stepped in, but it's just not that easy to replace someone of Zalia's level on a whim. Zalia not only is considered the best priest in the world, with a multitude of world titles under his belt, but also one of the best players in the world. But it is especially hard when he's had 150 attempts on an extremely hard boss to learn how to play it. Due to some roster changes and 2 people being unable to make the timing of the race to world first and help the healing team, Echo's healing leader Ryson was not actively playing, meaning he had no characters available to join the raid. In fact, Echo had no main healer to step in at that time. Echo literally had 4 healers for this tier, and one of them was gone. Enter Sol, a true champion who had been outside the raid to fill those shoes. Being less comfortable with playing the same spec as Zalia, he came in with his holy priest and got to work. In a remarkable turn of events, Sol not only picked up the fight along with great support from the team, but Echo did manage to make solid progress into the fight. A true gladiator. However, it did take some 6 hours of re-progress to get there. And for Echo, Tindral remained unkilled, and any advantage Echo thought was coming was lost. Liquid no doubt got a huge motivation seeing the setback of Echo and their chance to firmly stay in the lead. In typical Liquid fashion, they stormed through the reset and murdered every boss on their way back to Tindral. It was a spectacular demonstration of just how good Liquid are, managing to not only re-kill everything, but get Tindral to 24% and primed for a kill the following day. Echo's reset was not quite as smooth. Perhaps rocked by not taking the lead, they had some messy wipes on Nimue. While it may have only cost them an hour, it's the mental toll it takes to not be performing as well as the competition. They did get back to Tindral, with Zalia now back in action and pulling a 16-hour raid day after being completely ill the previous day. The following day was the real setback for Echo. Liquid claimed the world first Tindral after over 400 attempts, but still well within their normal raiding schedule, and then turning their stream off to begin work on the final boss, Farak, for the last couple of hours of their day, not showing the competition anything. Echo had to catch up. While many think that Echo has the advantage by being able to copy Liquid strategies due to the reset, the fact is, no one can win by copying what someone else has done. At the lunch break, Roger Brown talks to me and informs me that Tindral should be dead before the dinner break, to which I agreed. And it should have. It really, really should. Sadly, that was not to be the case. Echo just couldn't get everything working. Tindral is a very punishing encounter, and perhaps overconfidence led to the players being tilted, as well as the exhaustion of pushing on. Echo has a very precise sleep schedule to take full advantage of the reset time. 5 AM is when EU can begin progressing, and the players demand a minimum 8 hours sleep during the race to avoid fatigue. As the hours passed, Tindral was still standing, and Echo know Liquid is working on the final boss, and that final boss may be easy. The team had to pull together physically and mentally to get the job done. At midnight, after 19 hours of gaming, well past their usual sleep timers, on the final pull of the night, after some players even logged out after the previous try thinking the night was over, Echo managed this.
Seeds done. First.
Keep the spells alive.
First.
Warriors fine.
Or Phil.
Warriors fine.
Fate damage coming second. Fate damage coming. Fate damage third. It's just spread. Last one.
The mushroom. There's just soak mushroom.
Oh my god! Yes! Boys! Let's go! Fuck this!
Oh my god.
Fucking hell!
Thanks for staying.
Farak was not to be an easy boss, and both guilds got to work. Here is where the story takes an interesting turn. Liquid have the advantage. They got there first and began getting that all-important practice and experience. Farak is very well designed. Each step of the fight demands a huge amount of optimization from a micro and macro standpoint. It throws curveballs constantly with massive single target damage and develops into huge AoE damage and driving your healers into a frenzy of burst and constant damage on the raid. Liquid had a great streak of attempts that allowed them to reach the second phase of the fight early in their raid day, at which point they decided to once again turn off their streams so they wouldn't give any unnecessary information to the chasing team. Now the race to World First going dark is always controversial, and I have my own viewpoints, but for a team looking to win, it makes perfect sense. They are ahead and see no reason to help the enemy. However, in a twist of fate, this helped Echo immensely. You see, neither Echo nor Liquid wants to copy strats. It's not what they do or what allows them to really flex their muscles and become champions. It's also not wise to look at the solution to the puzzle if the solution is known. With Liquid Dark, however, Echo, for the first time since this race began, after 9 long days, were able to play their own game. They knuckled down and began working, developing their own ways of tackling the puzzle, and they began to fly. In the back of their minds, though, as the hours ticked by, it was always a concern as to where Liquid had gotten to during their blackout. In the previous Aberrus raid, when Liquid went dark, they came back online and were significantly further ahead on the final boss. It demoralized Echo, and they took the world first. As the clock ticked by, Liquid's stream came back, and they weren't ahead. They were at the same point. It was all tied up. I can't express to you the electricity that flowed through that warehouse in Sweden. It was as if Echo came to life. They finished their dinner and got right back to it. As more and more boss HP was removed and solutions were found, Echo started to pull ahead. Internally, lots of math was going on as to whether or not the boss was killable based on the health of the boss and the group setup. Echo had a 19% wipe on Farak as their raid day was coming to a close, and the boss was decidedly killable. But then, Blizzard nerfed the boss health by 4%.
Out. We do have Mini down on the enhancement Shaman, with it looks like no batters available, nor an Ankh, as we also have players now all frozen, it looks like, and wiping.
Oh, no.
Oh, the hand on the forehead, as this may be a weak aura issue with something they just changed about their UIs. Yeah, okay. Oh. Now we can take a look at what went wrong with the code there. Oh, no. Bigwigs is missing some timers on something.
Huge plays.
I don't know. That is an unfortunate way to lose 8 minutes and 30 seconds of very well executed combat up until that point.
Yeah, that has to be really, really frustrating.
Now, in hindsight, this nerf made a lot of sense, and no one but Blizzard knew just how hard the final 10% of the boss would be. We found out after the kill that Blizzard weren't even sure what they were asking of the players was even humanly possible. But at the time, it felt like a sledgehammer had been taken to Echo. Echo were about to head to sleep. They had raided long and hard the last 2 days to catch up and were now in the lead. They had now proven the boss was killable and were getting to that final phase of the fight consistently. Vice versa, Liquid were just starting their raid day and the boss had just been made easier. What do you do with this information? Well, in Echo's mind, it was time to dig deep and kill. Immediately, a call was made to the players. What do you need? Energy drinks, favorite candy, techno music, whatever it is, we will get it. Production immediately put the casters into action to keep the show going all night long, and Scripe rallied his troops to stand together. We also ordered pizza. I finished my second shift of the day at 3 a.m. when the team was on a 5-minute break. Fatigue had set in. The kill was not close, and I suggested to Scripe to go and get some sleep. He was of course of the mind that Liquid could godpull and take away their victory, and it's true. That could have happened, but it was looking unlikely. At 4 a.m. they decided to call it and head to bed. Trying to sleep, knowing your competition could take the title isn't easy. Perhaps exhaustion will allow you to just pass out, but it is hard. With the minimum 8 hours needed, it wouldn't be until 1 p.m. that the team would raid again. And until then, it was Liquid's show. As the sun rose over Sweden and I reached for my phone, I saw what I needed. The boss still lived. 6% remaining, and Liquid had also succumbed to fatigue and headed to bed. There was still a chance. At 12 p.m, the leaders of Echo arrived before the players, gathering to plan the day ahead. And at 1, the pulls began, and no one except Blizzard knew just how hard that 6% was to overcome. Farak's difficulty is very backloaded. While his other phases are tough, nothing compares to his final 10. The problem is the seeds and blazes. Blaze is an ability used from the start. Players shoot out fire waves to either side of them that hit other players. In phase 3, we add seeds. The twist is that if any of these seeds get hit by any boss mechanics, the raid instantly dies. At the start, there are 4 good seeds that are used to survive the dragon's roar periodically. However, when 1 good seed is used, 2 bad seeds join the fight. By the end, not only is the room considerably smaller due to the other mechanics, but you have 8 seeds to protect and a lot of blazes covering the room. Only by absolutely insane gameplay can they be protected. As the hours ticked by, Echo reached 1.82%. And then, just a few hours later, Liquid did this.
Lip goes down. They have a battle res left available for him as 6% left on the boss.
This is comes the worst play set of the whole fight.
4.5% on the boss right now. Fired Up is down. No more battle res is left remaining. 3% onto the boss. Oh, no! 1.8%.
After the race was done and the Echo team sat down to celebrate in a restaurant, Roger Brown asked me, was there any point in the race I thought Echo would lose? This was the only moment. Liquid is known for their consistency. It's one of their key strengths. After their low percentage wipe, I had a feeling that they were going to clean up soon. It was do or die for Echo to get the job done. Or not at all. After 13 days, dozens upon dozens of hours of grinding, insane plays, fatigue, setbacks, ups, downs, it came down to just 0.7% between the 2 best in the world, live for everyone to see. And with nearly 500,000 people watching live, it happened.
Here comes the blaze. Please, boys, focus up here. We need to do everything that we possibly can. If we continue to push on through, the boss is going to die before the seconds out of boxes.
Echo is racing to the finish line. This is it. They're unstoppable right now. The blaze has gone out, and they're going to do it. They've done it. They are the new Dragonflight champions. They have walked through hellfire and have come out on top.
What happened is unimaginable. To take 13 days to get down to less than a percentage between the two best in the world, a coin flip separating who would win it, viewers flicking backwards and forwards, both of them pulling at the same time. Every single pull could be the end. Cheering for your favorites, the bias, the switching, the casual viewers' minds blowing, and people coming in from all the games looking, why is World of Warcraft doing this? It's almost unimaginable to think that this will happen again. The sheer amount of circumstances required in order to get both of these teams, who are so excellent, and other teams climbing that ladder to try and get there, it's just unthinkable. The stars aligned. Will it happen again? I have no idea. But with Blizzard designing bosses like this, knowing that now the players can overcome these challenges, they will find a way. I hope we do see it again. But for now, Murdrasil will go down in history as the best race to world first there has ever been. And while Echo did take the crown home, it could have easily gone the other way. These guilds are above everybody else in such a massive way, and now we're seeing the challenges that that level of effort and contribution and skill is able to deliver. I, for one, am overjoyed with what we got to see, and I cannot wait for the next one in the War Within. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Okay, that one is actually on me. I forgot to swap back to whatever I thought was on Shami raids. I would have been way more tankier and actually held, but like not struggled holding threat. Well, that was unsatisfying. I mean, it's something to do in between Sunken Temple, I guess, resets and everything. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I could just heart through it, honestly. I don't care. Yeah. I think maybe call it a stream there. I don't know. Yeah. Call it a stream there. Got our 10 wild. I'd just be doing wild offerings again, probably by now, and yeah, get my shield. That's like so boring. Just going through Mara princess runs. Maybe I might get the dagger. I don't know if you're like tanking. Yeah, call it a stream here. That's a little over 2 hours.